Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our next Virtual Summit 2021 and our exciting session today with Dr. Stefanie Coßmann, member of the Board of Management at LANXESS, and Dr. Claudia Max, Head of Sales Management at Zurich, Germany. My name is Max Janzen. I have worked for Zurich, Germany for 7 years now, and I'm the project manager within the distribution and partnership department. And together with Guillermo, I'm the external connection co-lead of Next. I would like to start the session with a short introduction. What is the purpose of Next and our next virtual summit? Next is a grassroots movement within Zurich promoting intergenerational dialogue. In brief, the shape of workforce is changing. By 2025, 75% of global workforce will be millennials. With Next, we give a voice to newer generations, to future-proof our company globally, and to shape our legacy. Our next virtual summit will take place from 15 to 19 November 2021, and we are joined by several changemakers, senior leaders, entrepreneurs, and Zurich speakers. And we would like to bring our participants together to share insights, to support the intergenerational dialogue, and we would like to inspire you to take actions wherever you are, to solve your challenges, and to enable you to drive changes. Our agenda for the week deals with Next-related topics like next generation of work, next generation of climate and earth, and society and social innovation. Next is a global initiative, and diversity is key for our movement. Today, our session is all about people, and we would like to discuss and underline how diversity activities and approaches lead to higher quality leadership decisions, to more innovative strategies to find solutions, and to bring benefits and higher performance to companies. Please use our Q&A session to ask a lot of questions to make the session interactive as possible. At first, we would like to start with an introduction session of our speaker today. We are very delighted to welcome Stefanie Coßmann and Claudia Max to our panel today. And let's begin our introduction with Stefanie Coßmann. And it would be great if you could give our participants an overview on your career so far. And please share your thoughts with us. What is your personal view on diversity? Thank you very much.
So hopefully you can hear me.
Yes. Perfect.
Perfect. So good morning also from my end. I'm glad to be here with you today for the session on diversity in the course of the next summit. When Max contacted me and asked me whether I would like to join, I eagerly said yes, because you will see, hopefully during today's discussion with Claudia, of how important I see diversity as a major topic also for business success in the future. But before I go on that, a little bit on myself. My name is, as Max said, I'm Stefanie Coßmann. I'm 48 years old. I'm a member of the board of management of LANXESS AG, which is a chemical product producing company situated in Cologne. I'm a member of the board of management since nearly 2 years now, responsible for HR matters. I'm the labor director as well as legal and compliance matters and one of our business units. And I've been with the company for more than 17 years now, being in different functions throughout my career path, mostly in the legal function, because from my professional background, I'm a lawyer, but later on shifted into HR, and I've seen a lot also during lots of acquisitions I did for LANXESS, which were quite transforming. As I mentioned, we are a producing company situated with headquarters in Germany, and that puts a lot of problems on our desk with regard to workforce for the future. For that, we really strive for diversity for a variety of reasons and on different dimensions. So firstly, definitely it's the gender perspective, but it's also the nationality perspective as well as the age perspective that we really deem to be of major importance for our business success for the future. Because if I look at the development of our workforce, which will change by 50% during the next 10 years, we really will have a strong demand. And we will have to make use of whoever is available and willing to join the chemical industry as one of our new employees. So therefore, we have a real business need for driving diversity from a workforce perspective. On top of that comes that I see diverse teams, and with that I even include more dimensions of diversity, as really being a key success factor for strategic penetration into the future. At a first glance, having a diverse team is always a burden, because you see different perspectives, you hear different voices, you have different ways of behavior, and to take that into account and to bring that together is a challenge. But in the end, you will see that the results you achieve with a diverse team are much better than if you do it just with a single-minded setup of a team. And with that, I would leave it as an impulse for further discussion. But this is my view on diversity and my personal background. And as said, glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, I can just add to that. My name is Claudia Max, and I just give you a bit of a background of what I did in the past, also my view of diversity, but it's pretty much the same what you've heard before. I'm currently one below board at Zurich, leading the sales management team. So that means all kind of activities with regards to sales, from sales promotion to sales education training, digitalization of the sales team, and sales support in general. I'm now with Zurich in insurance in Germany for more than 2 years. And as you know, it's an international insurance company in the top 3. We are more or less a global company, while still when it comes to diversity in the individual countries, it's still in Germany or quite a German focused company. From my previous background, I worked 10 years in consultancy and with McKinsey & Company. And before that, I am a trained business person and studied business education also in Germany, but also in Asia and London. And also during the McKinsey career, I was quite internationally focused, spending a lot of time abroad. And this is in the end adding to what Mrs. Coßmann said. For me, diversity is definitely on the nationality side. And in your daily life, you see it a lot also. Of course, we're both women, so you always have the gender topic. Also, a lot of discussion on the gender side as well as on the age side. So the insurance industry, maybe you also feel that it doesn't sound too exciting, too cool. So it's really about hiring young talent, and also, however, developing the talent from a gender and also national perspective through the different hierarchies in the company. So when you look in Germany at the board, it's usually the typical age 50 white male person that you see there. So there are a lot of discussions ongoing, and definitely also what my previous company said, diverse teams are more performing teams, because you just bring different perspectives into solving solutions. So the typical mini-me approach is maybe the easier one. So you have people that think alike, makes the discussions much more easy, but in the end, you might not come to the best solution. And that's next to the demographic diversity, also the different characteristics. There are some people that are more the nerdy side, more the emotional side, more the creative side. So this is also something which adds for me to diversity. Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. And also thank you, Stephanie. As mentioned earlier, LANXESS is a grassroots movement, and it's a work in progress. and refer to gender diversity, generational diversity, and cultural diversity. The topic diversity in general is one of the key strengths for our global Next movement, and it's highly important for our further development. Beside Next, there are a lot of research work which underline that diversity activities and approaches lead to higher quality leadership decisions, to more innovative strategy to find solutions, and to bring benefits and higher performance to companies. Let's use our session today for best practice sharing, and we would like to ask you both, how do you establish diversity within your area of responsibility, and how do you handle diversity in your day-to-day work, and also in the mid and long-term perspective? Maybe you could share with us some insights of your personal experience and success stories during your professional career so far. I would hand it over to Stephanie Coßmann.
Unmute. So, as said, diversity really for me is a key business success factor. So from a company perspective, we are really doing a lot for bringing diversity forward. And this for me starts with employer branding. This goes over to defining recruitment processes. This also comprises programs and projects we are having of reduced work time. This goes into what do we do with our shift system? Is it really female friendly or not? This is for creating networks or networking groups on different dimensions of diversity. And also showing to our workforce that we as a board, so from a top-down approach, really take diversity very seriously and see it as one of our key business drivers with a strategic focus for the future. So it's not just a topic for the HR function, but it's much broader. It's really in our key beliefs and part of our culture, that we want to have professional set-up teams that work with trust and ownership together, and we can do so only by really respecting differences and bringing those differences forward into our teams and into our daily life. What do I mean with including in employer branding or including in recruitment processes as well as in talent development, as Claudia also pointed out earlier right now? This means that we have a target setting for shortlist if we have to fill positions. This is that we look at what's the quota we have in different teams for different dimensions of diversity, and if this is not sufficient or what we deem to be sufficient, we will push for that and foster that. Fortunately, we have a leadership team that is really supporting this very much. So the hurdles we need to overcome are not so high. Let me put it that way. With that, we really hope to bring diversity forward as one of the key success factors in our company. From my personal perspective, I have to admit that for quite a while during my professional career, I was not so convinced that diversity really is a topic, because I was in the lucky position to experience it from a day-to-day perspective when doing my job, that you simply matter because of your professional experience and not whether you are male or female or whether you are young or old. So as a lawyer, I was respected because I have the educational background, and sitting in a negotiation team, I was there and it was taken into account, and I was taken seriously, and irrespective of who was there, that was a good setup. But in the end, when I changed position and also became member of the HR department and looked at things from a different perspective, I really realized that this is not self-evident to be in a situation like this, but that there's much different situations you see in your daily life where people really have prejudices against young people, young female people not being so experienced, and that you really have to push for that, and that you have to set perspectives and encourage also people to speak up and to change the setup. And that is the reason why we took up diversity as one of the key topics and included that in lots of parts of what we do in within the company, but also why I started to speak up as a role model. Let me put it that way, because I'm the only woman in our board of five members, and if you look at the MDAX board compositions in Germany, it's unfortunately also still a rare thing to happen that you have a female, especially in the chemical industry. So I'm really speaking up as I do today with you, and why I committed to join you today. Because I really think that it's necessary to speak up, to encourage people to make up their minds for diversity. And with that, I don't only mean gender, but I really mean it from a much broader perspective, because people are mean, so they do not think intentionally. It's much more about unconscious biases and about what they do not see when acting in a way. And if you start openly to talk about it, then people will change their perspective, and we will be in a more embracing environment. So that may be a little bit on what we do at LANXESS and what my personal view and motivation is to kick that off from here.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, if I just add to that, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect. It just said that I'm mute. Yeah, for me, it's also, you need formal anchoring for me. This is not now the quota discussion, but for example, what we do at Zurich is really, it's in our, for example, customer experience standards. So what does it mean is when we do any marketing material or any type of material, it has to fulfill diverse criteria in all dimensions, so nationality, age, backgrounds, gender. So this is just this unconscious bias when you only have like whatever young people or only old people or only male, that you have it always, you don't recognize it maybe, but it's in there. So this is like formal in the standards. Then we have, of course, the formal programs and everything. And then there's a lot for me about culture. So next to this formal, what I think you need, because else it will not happen, because we are not yet a completely diverse company when you see at the ratios. Then it's a lot about, for me, about the cultural aspect. So what Stephanie said, a lot on the awareness, the listening, the hearing. So to really give diversity a voice, to reflect when you're only in meeting with male people, or when you're only in meeting with people from one culture and there's somebody from a different cultural background, that you just give them a more airtime to also speak up or realize these biases that might happen and might not be by default. It's not, sometimes people don't want to use that bias, but it's just in us. And then in my daily life, there's of course, there's some things that I just realized. So when I joined Zurich, I have 22 managers in my department, and of these 22 managers, it's a typical gender topic. We have only 3 women, and at the same time, I thought, or we only 3 women, while 51%, which is the general German average, are women, and 49 are male in the whole workforce. So you see there, the management, the female people in the management is completely underrepresented. And the second was, I thought, because we have also an age topic, in particular in the sales force, the average age is above the normal average age. I thought all the young people know each other and just exchange how they are and learn from each other. And then I realized in different meetings that also I was just 1 year in with the company. I had to let the different, tell them who they are and what they are doing. So in the end, what we did is installing also formats, one for young people and one for females. And of course, you then earn some criticism sometimes also because you do not reflect on the older people and not on the male people. But with these formats now, after 2 years, I think we really got communities, and through that exchange, through that awareness that they have different struggles. I mean, I also went through the struggles when moving up the ladder, that I'm a female and only having males around me. And through that exchange, I think the people learn a lot from each other, and that also helps to create more diversity in our company.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Stephanie. And we have also some comments in the chat which agree that the concept of diversity as enabler of a business success is very important. And as you already underlined, that we have the business need, but also the cultural change has a huge impact on the further development of the topic. And now let's raise a challenge, especially for our participants in the call, in the professional and also in the personal context. Our participants today come from different countries, speak different languages, and they have completely different starting points with diversity especially. What is your personal advice for our community to drive a change, to make an impact in their environment, but especially do you have a career advice to find their position in their professional life? And now, especially also for our participants, please use our Q&A chat to share your thoughts, also your personal experience, and to ask questions if you have something to share with us today. Thank you. And I will hand over to Stephanie.
Yeah, I think we all have responsibility for driving diversity as a topic forward. And with that, I mean really each and every one of us, yeah, because what Claudia mentioned and I said earlier as well, it has a big behavioral component in making diversity a success and not just as saying which is somehow in vogue or a fancy topic right now. I see lots of people struggling or questioning themselves. Am I the right person for taking a position? Or do you mean that seriously in driving a diverse workforce? And for me, key is really going into dialogue and encouraging people. So for me, diversity and speaking up is about responsibility each of us has, or every one of us is having. And encouraging to be courageous, yeah, because Claudia, you said when I went up the ladder, I was in a male environment. Being aware of that is the first part, but being so brave to say, hey, I will make it, irrespective of whether I'm different, is brave, yeah, or courageous. So I think being courageous is very important attribute that you would need to climb up the ladder and to be in a diverse environment, productive and successful. When I look at the dimension of gender diversity, I often see females who say, I have to make up my mind between either making career or going on a career path or having a family. I always say no. This is first not the decision you have to make up your mind about, and second, even if you think about that decision, I think the answer to that is clear. At least here in Germany, we have a legal setup where females have to take care of their pension systems and what they would need for their living themselves, even if they are married 1 year after divorce. So I think from a society perspective, it's no longer the question of having to make up your mind of whether you want to do one thing or the other. But I really see it important that also from a society point of view, this is supported. And there I still see lots of lags, and this goes now into a political dimension I don't want to take up today. But I think that there are still some supportive elements that we would need to ask for and speak up loudly to change that from a setup. But if I have two key messages, I would like to say here today, it's really take responsibility and be courageous.
Yeah, I think, Stephanie, exactly my opinion. So it's a combination of really being courageous and speaking up as long as diversity is not yet there. And at the same time, I think still you need to have a thick skin. So if you give up too early, if you're the one person in the room which is diverse, then it will never make it, you will never make it happen. So in the end, as now diversity is not yet given in most societies or most companies, we need to create these examples that in the beginning, they are examples that can guide others. And then we reach a stage where you don't have this undiverse cultures anymore. And then it's about also the courageousness, as Stephanie told it, to speak up. Because of course you need to mention it, because sometimes I had an example last week about somebody really pointed out my nice shoes, which I thought is a nice comment, but a lot of female in the room thought that's quite completely an unwise or not fact-based comment, which would never have done to a male person. So in the end, I wasn't aware that that it resonated with the female people in the room like that, but they spoke up, and so they created awareness that for them it was not a correct comment in that moment. And so I think that's in the end creating awareness if there's diversity is not respected or there are certain biases in the room, and on the other hand, have a thick skin, be brave, and just take your stance when you're in the minority group.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Claudia. And if you take a look on our chat, and what you already mentioned today is especially the cultural change. There's one question, which means how to avoid tokenism. Just putting a female, a young person, a person of color on leadership teams and boards does not address the challenge. What's your view on this issue and how to tackle this? This also refers very strongly to what you already mentioned with cultural change, for example. And who would like to answer to this? Stephanie, it's okay if I hand over to you?
Yeah, for sure. No problem on that. I mean, that's a challenge. Yeah, Claudia, and I mentioned that as long as you are the single one in a rather homogeneous team setup, this is always difficult. Yeah. So you will need strong supporters and you will need awareness of the situation. Otherwise, the road to take will be a very bumpy one. So when doing so, putting someone in a setup, you need to do that very consciously. So first, really looking at whether this person is the right one to take that position, because otherwise you won't do no one a favor, and neither the team nor the person that you put into it, because the route to failure is much shorter than the route to success. So that for me is the first one. The second one is, as Claudia gave the example of her shoes, there would be lots of other examples you can give that you really have to work on awareness. That this is a different scenario than you've seen in the past, that you have expectations you put on that, and that you will support it, and that you will create an ambience and an environment where people can speak up to really address problems that could arise at a very early moment to avoid that it goes down significantly over time. Yeah, and I think the more diverse a team is, the easier it is for those being the outsiders from the beginning.
Yeah, and adding to that, I think in the end, tokenism, just putting whatever, a female, a certain nationality, so that's not so homogeneous, the board, is just, yeah, I think you cannot just do that and you're it's the easy way out. So I think this is just one element. On the other hand, I think it's an element because in the end, often a bigger change needs a top-down approach. So if your board is purely homogeneous from the backgrounds, I think it will be hard to drive diversity throughout the organization. So in the end, and I don't want to start the quota discussion that was a lot held in Germany, but I think also some other countries. But I think it makes sense to have a diverse leadership, because then diversity will just come natural, because we do have a kind of mini-me approach. So in the end, if you have a diverse board, they will automatically, or diversity will automatically easier, I think, not it's automatic, but it's easier to flow through the organization. And it shouldn't be just tokenism to have a female, whatever, somebody from another country on the board, but it should be by performance and make a stance that then flows through the company.
Thank you both. And let's take a look, especially on the topics which you raised, like mentoring or role modeling. Imagine if you're a young person, how important is it to be part of a mentoring or to have a role model? And second question, how to find the right role model or a mentor where you say, okay, what are the key facts that you say, okay, I'm in a good mentoring program, or that mentoring program supports me? Maybe could you share some experience with us? What were your experience with mentoring, and how do you think you can support especially young people or that they will join such a mentoring program?
I take that maybe. There's one important person or function I would add to that list, and that's a sponsor. So I think if I look first at a role model, all of us have a person in mind that they think of highly. Yeah, and this could be your parents, your sister, your former boss, a colleague, your grandmother. I had a talk with colleagues of mine where I did a roundtable yesterday. One of the Indian colleagues even said my role model is one of my godnesses. So you see the array of what could be a role model is very broad, and I think each and everyone has to define for him or herself. Having one definitely helps, because we will be able to reflect on certain behaviors, or to have an ideal world of what you say, hey, this I found cool and I would like to do myself. Apart from that, if I look at mentoring, I think that helps a lot of bringing across what the two of us mentioned earlier, that you have to be brave, that you have to have a thick skin, and that you have to reflect on your environment, and that things you have experienced during your day-to-day life most likely were not brought towards you intentionally, but rather unconsciously, because of different ways of thinking or different perspectives that were left unspoken in a room or somewhere else. So I think having someone who has made more experiences in the past and has had the chance and opportunity to look at things from different perspectives and angles definitely helps on reflecting on yourself, and that's what the role of a mentor is. So setting the scene for reflecting and encouraging for me is really extremely helpful, especially in situations where you are the lonely rider. Especially in cases where you are still young and rather unexperienced. You leave university or your apprenticeship, you start in a team and you don't know what's going on there. So therefore, it might be very helpful to have a mentor and enter in a mentorship relationship with someone within your company that has more experiences, or even with someone outside the company. I took on lots of mentees over the past couple of years. We have a mentorship program within our company, and there are lots of official programs where I think we have lots of excellent mentors in where people should go to and look for it. But apart from that, and that's the third function I was making reference to that earlier, I think it's really key and crucial to look for a sponsor. That is someone where you have faith in that he or she will support you in your career, who has a view and somehow a protecting home for you in your development within the company, and that will push forward for you to make the next career step. And who should be that? Maybe someone you've worked in a very successfully together in a project, who has of a higher ranking. Approach him or her and say, hey, would you like to become my sponsor? I have the following capabilities. I'm eager really to climb up the ladder, and these are the things I bring with me. What do you think of it? Is there a recommendation of my next career path I should do, etc., etc.? So that I really think is also quite important, and people should look at for not giving up and for being successful in what they want to do.
Yeah, and also just adding to that, I love the concept of mentor and sponsor. This is also sometimes it might be the same person, but definitely you need both in your career life. And here for me, it's that you really, it's a two-way street. In the end, you need to, of course, you have the formal programs in most companies. Also, Zurich has a lot of them, and where you can easily find a mentor. Still, I think often it's the informal mentors that you find in your life. And I had it a lot, and I profited a lot of these during my career. That helped you in different situations. And I think this is just something that you really should also look out for. It's not a one-way street. The mentor finds you or the sponsor finds you, but it's often sometimes where you really need to put skin in the game and look out for these guys, and also prepare when you talk to the mentor. What is it really? What is your questions? What are your thoughts that you may have taken with you, and bring the next time when you see or exchange with that person. And of course, I mean, also I think, and Stephanie, I also heard that from you, that of course also now I also mentee, or I have different mentees, and you try to bring your experience for these guys, because you learn a lot also from I mean, usually it's younger or more junior people, and you get their perspectives and so on, and so this is a fruitful two-way street. So I could just encourage you to do that for the different perspectives or angles that you want to pursue.
Thank you both for your experience, and let's pick up the topic, especially what you mentioned with the thick skin, because during our next virtual summit we had several sessions, and we will have some sessions about mental health, but also how to deal or how to build up these thick skin. Do you have tips and tricks, or maybe do you have some advices for our participants today, how to train the mental health, or how to get enabled to have this thick skin, especially in your professional career. I would hand to Stephanie.
I think for me, it's twofold. First, I think all of us have experienced that discipline is extremely necessary and sometimes a burden, but something that is really necessary. And I have to say my role model to a certain extent is my grandmother, who was a typical Prussian strong female. And even in my younger times, when I said, oh, I don't want to do something or so, she said, you have to. Yes, you have no choice. You have to go for it because of X, Y, Z. And then I started reflecting. When my kids say I don't want to go to school, it's the same discussion we are having each and every day. So there are some things you need to do, but if you do them, you will find out that they bring joy and fulfillment. So I think the close link between discipline, but what's behind, once you've overcome your Schweinehund, as you would say in German, is for me really key. But I think it's also necessary to be aware of that sometimes things are tricky and that you would need time for yourself to reflect on that. And some people do yoga, some people do mindfulness trainings. Each and everyone needs to find out what's best for him or her. But for me, really, one of the key factors is make yourself aware that some things need to happen and that you have to be disciplined to go for that. And then things will become much easier.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question, or not a trivial question. In the end, what I try to do is always to have certain parameters. So what means that? So in the end, putting myself some borderline or borders where I think in that space I can really work, live, etc. very well in order to really not to strain, to overwork myself whatsoever. So I think this is important. And then I think it's always important. I mean, not every day might be the most happiest whatsoever. So there might come some blocks or whatever on the way, but it's really about that in the end, you have your North Star, or you really enjoy the general work that you're doing. And your general life, and get out the sand in the motor, so that in the end you have in your parameters, you really enjoy what you're doing, and when you're coming across too much at the edge, then you really try to get again your parameters in place, not to overstrain or so on, because when you're really at the edge, then I think it's getting critical. And that's what Stephanie said, getting the awareness when you're close to these, in order to then really take a step back, reflect, say what I need, and then being also brave to really get out this what I said, the sand, what might really give you struggles and so on, and tackle that heads on, in order to then have again the environment that you need in order to be happy, to prosper, because only then I think you can be performing, you're effective in what you're doing.
Thank you both. And now I refer to a question within the chat. If you can see it, you can be it. In your opinion, how important is representation in getting more diverse workplaces and societies?
I'm trying to get my hands around what's behind that question. So the answer could be very broad and very narrow. So I'm struggling a little bit of what would be the best answer to it. I mean, with all what we've said in over the last couple of minutes, I think there's no question of whether diverse representation in any team or board setup or whatever, or in society, is of importance. It puts stress on a system, definitely, but that stress needs to be held out, so needs to be taken care of, because then it will bring the benefits that I strongly see out of diversity. But I don't know if that is really what is behind that question. So maybe Claudia, you have another idea on that.
Yeah, maybe it's about the role modeling. And we had I think most of you guys also from different countries know her. We had, what just comes to my mind is we had a German chancellor which was female, so Angela Merkel. And then it was a lot of discussions in the press. Now each young female person can see that it's possible to become or to lead a country. So I'm not sure whether this is immediately seeing and being it, because there's a lot more. So I think also what you also said with tokenism, it's not just placing one person on the board and then everybody can be it. So there's a lot more to it. But I think role models make a difference. And yes, I think if they see a Black person can be president of the United States, or a female person can lead a country like Germany, that is seeing and being and already being a start towards it.
Thank you for your opinion. And there's another comment from Daniela. I think all managers need the mindset that diversity will be key. What's your opinion on it? Do you think the cultural change especially focus on the leadership level, and how to train or how to raise the awareness, especially if you're in a leadership function, to understand that the diversity will be key in the future?
Yeah, for me, it needs to go both directions. So it's really a top-down topic that needs to be brought into the organization, and that definitely kicks off also with the leadership team and with leaders within their teams, because they can make the difference. Yeah, if you have a team and you push for diversity, it's you who will see the difference, but who will also have to take the burden for some time to bring that team together with a diverse setup. Yes, I really think it's a top-down and especially a leadership responsibility. This needs training. Yeah, definitely. This needs training on unconscious biases. What do I do? What I don't want to do? Yeah, or what should I do to avoid something? That's first. But second, it's knowing about what can I do with my team, how to steer my team. So what are different ways of looking at? I mean, you have made up your experience with having a team that was comprised as it was in the past. If you now change something in the system, you need to be first aware of. I just mentioned that, but second, you need to know how enable the team to bring in all its expertise, and that might be a completely different way of leading a team than you've done in the past. So leadership trainings is key. And third, I have to say that to a certain extent, some pressure is also necessary from my end, from my perspective, to push forward the top-down approach. And this might via a quota, this might be via structured processes you do in recruiting, where you put on a quota or whatever, or outside targets you communicate to your stakeholders and shareholders you want to fulfill, and then setting that also for the internal purpose of bringing things forward, because otherwise lots of people will think, oh, it's so convenient, I stay where I am, why should I change something? So for me, it's really threefold to bring that topic forward.
Yeah, I see it in the same way. In the end, I think managers, and I mean research proved that diverse teams are more effective, and I strongly believe in that. And managers should get their heads around that. And yes, it's a hard or it's not an easy or it's a stony road, because of course having your team that you have, which is in the end maybe not diverse, and hiring diverse teams, or as we said in the beginning, leading diverse teams, puts more struggle to the manager, because in the end, it's managing diverse perspectives, maybe not so easy than managing a very homogeneous team. And adding to that, I mean, it's both for me. Maybe if you had asked me 10 years ago, I was not a fan of quotas and formal processes. Now my mind changed a bit, and it's still a very highly polaristic discussion. But I think, as Stephanie said, quotas and other formal procedures are sometimes really necessary. And on the other hand, still you need to win over these managers, because if they do not really get it and it's just enforced on them, it will never be as much as they truly believe in diverse teams are more successful. So it's a bit both. And then, of course, you need to win over the majority of them in order to move the needle and get the organizations around.
Thank you very much. And there's a comment from Esther, and also the question: loving this conversation, thank you. What can we all start doing to really have an organization more diverse? Being conscious about the lack of diversity there is now, talking about and fostering a team culture where everybody feels listened seems to be just the first step. But if we really want to become a diverse organization and change the status quo, what can we really do? In interest of time, I would like to use this comment and the question also for our keynote for the conclusion step. It would be very great if you could give us also an example which kind of future areas of development or which changes you would like to drive in the future. And do you see any opportunities, especially for improvement in our society and also in the business context at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, that question comprises already lots of the answers that I think are necessary to be given. Yeah, and the first step for me always is creating awareness of how successful diverse teams, but also on how burdensome it is to bring diversity forward. Because only if we are aware of those two aspects, it will become a conviction of each and every leader in an organization that this is really a necessity and not just a nice to have or some invoke topic, as I said earlier, that some politicians brought on the agenda, or some strange females or younger people brought on the agenda for whatever reason. So for me, that really is the initial step and the first thing to do. Second, as we have said also during that talk, is you have to take care that he or she is not the lonely rider. So you would have to arrange for a constant change and a constant development really towards a more diverse team. And that needs to be accompanied by trainings on lots of topics, like leadership, like unconscious bias. And you need to put in place the formal background, as Claudia mentioned earlier, really to have the fundamentals on where you can go back to in case of questions or discussions of what should be done. So I think there's really some fundamental basis you need to set up to bring things forward. And then for me, it's really the responsibility of each and everyone to speak up, to have an overarching view on the organization, to make conscious decisions of changing something in a system, and not only doing a change and then stepping back, but taking responsibility also for the further development of that change in the system. So I think that's what each and every one of us could do, should do, and has to do, because from my perspective, the train on diversity is full on a full stream, and I really like that. It has left the station, but coming to where it should head to, the path is still very long, and we should make sure that the coil is not being down during the ride, and therefore we really need to push that forward and to bring that forward, and this can only be done by the engagement and the responsibility each of us is having for that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, I think it's really about what we said in the beginning, and here I can just add to what Stephanie said. It's about linking diversity or convincing or achieve the convincement that diversity has a concrete link to business impact. So in the end, if we get this notion down and also top managers understand that concept, I think you can nail the topic. I don't want to relate too much to the sustainability discussion, which is a bit on a different notion, but I think also here you can easily steer, and you now see it, companies that see the link between something that needs to be achieved and business impact, then you more and more make it happen. And I think that is something that that we need all to further anchor in society, but also in economic life, to have these concepts through, and then everything else comes down to it. The formal processes that we mentioned, the informal, the culture that needs to shift, and here I think everybody is or needs to further foster and strive for that, and not close their voices or shut down their voices, but really create this awareness and speak up for diversity.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Claudia, especially for sharing your experience and your thoughts with us. That's very helpful for our community, and especially thank you all to our participants today, because we are very engaged, ask a lot of questions, and that helps to make the discussion especially also very interactive. Thank you for that. And time flies. We now arrive at the end of our call today. And I hope you enjoyed the sessions, and we would look forward for our following sessions today and also at the rest of the week. And now a special thanks to Claudia and Stephanie for joining us. And please, if you have any further questions, let us know and we will send them to Claudia and Stephanie. And thank you that you will be part of our next virtual summit, and our following sessions are coming up today and also tomorrow, and the last ones will be on Friday. Thank you, have a good day, and I hope you will stay with us. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.